Hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
I sensed something was wrong the moment I unlocked the front door. The apartment in Chicago felt unnaturally still. Not the comforting kind of silence after a long day. This was heavy, suffocating. No music from the living room, no footsteps above, no dishes clattering in the kitchen. Just a thick quiet that felt like it was waiting for me. When I stepped inside, Rebecca stood in the center of the living room, arms folded tightly across her chest, her jaw locked with anger. Beside her, her son Ethan paced back and forth, gripping his phone like a weapon. I hadn't even shut the door. "What did you do?" Rebecca demanded, her voice trembling. "I nearly collapsed at the ATM today." Ethan rushed forward and shoved his screen toward my face. "The account's empty, Marcus. Completely drained. Where did the money go?" I calmly placed my work bag on the table, though my pulse hammered in my chest. "I opened a new account," I said evenly. "My salary goes there now." The reaction was immediate. Rebecca's face drained of color. Ethan froze mid-step, staring at me like he'd misunderstood. For several seconds, the only sound was the ticking of the antique clock hanging on the wall, the one I'd installed years before either of them lived here. Then the explosion came. "You can't just do that," Ethan shouted. "We have expenses." "Our expenses," Rebecca corrected sharply, but her eyes never left my face, searching for hesitation. I closed the door behind me. "No," I said quietly. "They're not ours." The words settled heavily between us. 3 years earlier, I would have apologized just to avoid conflict. I would have surrendered for the sake of peace. But something inside me had shifted that morning at the bank. Something buried under years of guilt and compromise had finally surfaced. I married Rebecca at 54. After my first marriage collapsed and my daughters moved abroad, loneliness had filled my house like an echo. Rebecca had seemed warm, attentive, understanding. She made me feel visible again. Ethan came with her, 26 years old then, drifting between jobs, apartments, and ambitions. "It's temporary," Rebecca had promised, squeezing my hand over dinner. "Just until he gets stable." I believed her. I'd worked as a construction supervisor for over 3 decades in Boston before relocating. Long days, aching joints, endless overtime. I wasn't wealthy, but I was dependable. My paycheck arrived with steady certainty. At first, helping felt natural. Family supports family. Ethan's first request was small, $300 for car repairs. Then, $500 for rent on an apartment he never moved into. Then, $800 for emergencies. Each time, Rebecca defended him. "He's trying, Marcus. Don't be so harsh." Eventually, she proposed something that changed everything. "It would be simpler if your salary went directly into our joint account," she said one night, while I rubbed ointment on my aching shoulder. I already managed the bills. I hesitated. Something about it unsettled me, but exhaustion won. I signed the papers. From that moment, my earnings vanished into a system I no longer controlled. Whenever I asked about finances, Rebecca dismissed my concerns. If I noticed large withdrawals, they were utilities. If Ethan bought expensive gadgets, they were discount deals. When credit card balances grew, she reminded me I lived under her roof. Her roof. The apartment I had purchased 8 years before meeting her. I had renovated the kitchen myself, repaired the balcony, painted every wall. Yet slowly, subtly, I became a guest in my own home. I cooked dinner while Rebecca worked late. I drove Ethan to interviews that never resulted in jobs. Every 2 weeks, my paycheck disappeared. The illusion shattered last month. At a pharmacy in Seattle, where I was visiting for a work project, my card was declined while paying for medication. Rebecca later called it a technical error. But that same night, I noticed a bank alert on Ethan's phone. A large cash withdrawal at 2:13 a.m. Something inside me hardened. The next morning, I requested 18 months of bank statements. Sitting in the bank's sterile waiting area, I reviewed every transaction. The numbers made my ears ring. Sports bars, online betting sites, electronic stores, luxury clothing, a resort vacation in Cancun I had never heard about. Nearly $42,000 gone. The bank officer, a woman named Julia, didn't look surprised when I asked to open a new private account. She simply nodded. Now I stood facing the consequences. "You're going to destroy this family," Ethan snapped. "No," I answered calmly. "I'm done financing you." Rebecca's hands trembled. "You had no right to make this decision alone." "For 3 years," I replied. "I didn't even have a right to my own income." Silence swallowed the room. Ethan pointed at me. "You live here. You use electricity, food, everything. You think that's free?" I studied him. The designer watch on his wrist. The shoes worth more than my old work boots. "This home was fully paid for before you learned the address," I said. Rebecca stepped between us. "Marriage means partnership. It means sharing." The word once held meaning for me. Trust, loyalty, respect. Now it sounded hollow. In the kitchen, they followed as I poured water. "I tried talking to you," I told Rebecca. "Every time I questioned the missing savings. Every time I asked why money vanished overnight." Ethan scoffed. "You were spying." "It was my account." That single word, my, unsettled them. For years it had been replaced by ours, but the truth had always been simpler. Control hadn't been taken all at once. It came through small concessions. The joint account, the excuses, the unquestioned purchases. An enormous television appeared one night. "Clearance sale," Ethan claimed. Weeks later, I saw the full charge. Then came the mother-son vacation Rebecca said they needed. I stayed home working overtime while they posted beach photos. Guilt had once silenced me. Clarity now replaced it. "So, what happens now?" Ethan demanded. "I separate my income from your spending." "That's abandonment," Rebecca whispered. "It's accountability." Eventually, the truth surfaced. Their debt exceeded $15,000, not including what had already been spent. Ethan admitted he'd gambled, believing he could multiply the money and fix everything. "You gambled my salary," I said quietly. "It wasn't like that," he muttered. But the bank statements told the real story. Numbers never exaggerate. That night, I laid the documents on the table. Transaction after transaction exposed years of deception. Rebecca's hands shook as she read them. Ethan couldn't even look directly at the pages. They argued, blaming each other, until the truth slipped out. They believed I would never notice. That realization didn't wound me. It clarified everything. "I'm not pushing you into hardship," I told them. "I'm stepping out of it." Later, Rebecca approached me carefully. "The debt is worse than we thought," she admitted. "If payments stop, we'll default." "You will," I corrected gently. She called me cruel. Ethan accused me of betrayal, but I simply spoke the truth.